All right, let's now move on to some of what we'll call accessory organs of the GI tract. So this will include organs such as the salivary glands. So this is an operative picture of a patient who we were operating on and removing a tumor from the parotid gland, which is one of our salivary glands. We're also going to talk about the liver and the pancreas, and then along with that, the gallbladder. So we have three major salivary glands, or three pairs of major salivary glands. So there's one of these on either side. The names of these glands are not important for this class, but these, as with all salivary glands, produce saliva. And the importance of saliva is that it plays an antibacterial role within the mouth. It also is very important for lubrication. So, if you've ever been what they refer to as cotton-mouthed, where your mouth is very dry, it's very difficult to sometimes speak or even swallow. So saliva both lubricates as well as provides some antibacterial effects. Within saliva, we're going to learn that it also secretes something called salivary amylase, and that's something that's important with digestion. So if you do not have good function of your salivary glands, if they're not producing adequate saliva, we refer to that condition as xerostomia, which means dry mouth. And when patients have xerostomia and they lose not only the lubricating effects, they also lose the protective antibacterial effects or antimicrobial effects. And so patients that have very dry mouths are very much at risk for diseases with regards to their gingiva and then subsequently their teeth. So those of you who are interested in dentistry, you'll realize the important role that saliva plays in keeping the teeth and the gums healthy. We then can move on to the pancreas. In the pancreas, we've learned in our endocrine section, has an endocrine function. It has the islets of Langerhans, which would be perhaps indicated by these blue squiggles here. And in the islets, this is where we have our endocrine cells, the beta cells and alpha cells that secrete insulin and glucagon. The pancreas also has what we call an exocrine function. So whereas the endocrine function, these substances are being secreted into the bloodstream and taken to various parts of the body that have their effects, the exocrine function are substances that the pancreas are going to produce, and they're going to secrete into what we call the pancreatic duct, and these will then go directly into the small intestine. These substances include bicarbonate as well as various digestive enzymes. So we'll see that pancreas releases amylase, proteases, and lipase. In this picture, we also see the gallbladder, and it has a duct which also combines with the pancreatic duct, and so its contents will be released into the small intestine as well, and this will play an important role in digestion. This is an endoscopic picture of the duodenum, and this little bump here, this is called the ampulla of Vater, and this is where the pancreatic and bile duct come together and will release their contents into the small intestine. Now, the liver is a pretty amazing organism, or pretty amazing organ. It has multiple functions, and we'll list out some of those here and try to divide them into some sort of various classes of functions that it performs. So first, it performs what we call a glucose buffer function. And what we mean by that is it has the ability to remove excess glucose from the plasma, and when it removes it, it then will store it in the form of glycogen, and that's called glycogenesis. If we are low on glucose, then it can then return this glucose back to the plasma, and that's called glycogenolysis. If we run out of stored glucose, the liver has the ability to produce glucose, and that's through the process called gluconeogenesis. So all of these are functions that are occurring within the liver to help us maintain a relatively stable level of glucose. The liver is important in handling lipids. It can process lipids and create ketone bodies. And ketone bodies can be used as an alternative source of energy by other cells so that we free up glucose so that it can be used by the brain. The liver produces about 80% of cholesterol that's in our body. So realize all the talk about cholesterol and cholesterol levels, what we take in our diet only accounts for perhaps about 20% of the cholesterol that's in our plasma. So 80% roughly of cholesterol in our plasma is actually created by our liver. The liver manufactures substances called lipoproteins, and these are used to transport lipids throughout our body. So these include things like LDL and HDL. Those may have been things that you've heard about when people are having their cholesterol checked. It also produces bile salts, and the bile salts are things that will be put into bile, and as long as you have a gallbladder, those will be stored in the gallbladder to be then later released to help with digestion. The liver is responsible for creating numerous proteins in our body. So this will include proteins such as albumin, which are used as carrier molecules. And recall that albumin is the most abundant protein in our plasma, and this is the protein that's responsible for creating the oncotic pressure, which is involved in the Starling forces with regards to bulk flow. The liver also creates many of the proteins involved in our clotting cascade. The liver plays an important role in detoxification, and this is done in many cases by a system called the Cytochrome P450 system in the liver. So this will detoxify various substances. So this will not only detoxify exogenous, meaning things that are from outside of our body that we ingest, but will also detoxify substances that our body produces. Within the liver, we have the urea cycle, something you have perhaps learned about in cell physiology or biochemistry. And the importance here of the urea cycle is that we produce a lot of ammonia with protein metabolism in our body. Ammonia is toxic. So we have to convert the ammonia to something that is less toxic or non-toxic and that we can excrete easily. So the liver plays an important role in converting ammonia to a substance called urea. And the liver also plays an important role in storage. So we've already talked about the storage of glucose in the form of glycogen. This is also where we store iron. This is in the form of ferritin. And then we have various vitamins that we store in the liver as well.